A man hides in the damp shade of fig leaves, his skin prickling with sudden sweat as footsteps echo through the cool evening dirt, something the casual reading completely misses. The spoken word of God is not a literary device. It is a rescue operation. It is a direct address. It is a staggering disruption of everything the ancient world believed about the divine. God does not demand a goat liver. He demands a departure. And Abram leaves. He packs his tents. He drives his flocks into the dust. He walks away from the center of civilization, into the absolute unknown, and the voice goes with him. It becomes the defining rhythm of his entire existence. The voice tells him to walk the length and breadth of Canaan. The voice promises him that his descendants will be enslaved in a foreign land for 400 years, but will come out with great possessions. The voice is specific. The voice is relentless. It is the architect of a new nation. Abram pitches a tent. The voice promises land. Abram looks at the night sky. The voice promises descendants. Abram falls into a deep, terrifying sleep. The voice cuts a covenant through severed animal flesh. The voice changes his name. Abram becomes Abraham. The voice promises an impossible son. Isaac is born. Every major pivot in his century-long journey is marked by the exact same trigger. The Lord speaks. The man obeys. The promise expands. But the voice that builds this man's faith is about to test its very foundation. Because decades after the departure from Ur, the voice arrives again in the dark. Only this time, it does not promise a future. It asks for blood. The real question of the first book of the Bible isn't, how did God create? It's this: who is he willing to talk to? The wind on Mount Moriah is thin and bitter. An old man stands on the limestone ridge, his breathing shallow, holding a heavy bronze knife that trembles against the early morning sky. The rough, split wood is arranged. The fire is ready. The boy is bound on top of the altar. For decades, the voice of God has been Abraham's compass, guiding him through foreign lands, promising him impossible futures, and eventually delivering this exact miracle son. But now, that same familiar voice has asked for the unimaginable. Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering. God speaks the command, and then, for 3 agonizing days of walking through the dust, God goes completely silent. The silence is heavier than the wood loaded on the donkey. 3 days of placing one foot in front of the other. 3 days of making camp in the cold, staring at the fire, waiting for a reprieve that does not come. You can hear the steady, brutal crunch of footsteps on the gravel. You can feel the rough bark of the firewood strapped to the boy's back. He does not broadcast messages to the masses. He does not hold press conferences in the town squares of ancient Mesopotamia. You can feel the cold sweat on the patriarch's neck as they ascend the ridge. In the ancient Near East, child sacrifice is not unthinkable. The gods of Canaan demand it regularly. To the ancient mind, the highest form of religious devotion is handing your firstborn over to the flames. Abraham is simply preparing to do what every other man in his era assumes the divine requires. He raises his arm, the bronze catches the pale light, and the silence breaks. Abraham, Abraham, the angel of the Lord calls out from heaven. Vayomer. The voice returns at the absolute final fracture point. Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God. A ram is frantically thrashing in a thicket, caught by its horns. The boy is untied. The rough ropes fall to the dust. The altar receives a substitute. This command was not an initiation into the bloody cults of Canaan. It was a permanent severing from them. The God of Genesis does not want the boy on the altar. He wants the patriarch to learn, in his very bones, that the creator of the universe is not like the frantic, bloodthirsty deities of the surrounding nations. God provides the lamb himself. The Moriah test ends in staggering relief. The voice of God intercepts the blade. The voice of the creator in Genesis is surgical. It is deeply intimate. It arrives almost exclusively in moments of profound human breaking. The father and the son walk down the mountain together, breathing the clean air of survival. But the intervention on Moriah sets up a terrifying contrast for the generations that follow. Because there is a moment coming where a different favored son will be stripped naked, thrown into a dry, echoing pit, and left to beg for his life while his brothers sit down, to eat a meal just above his head. And the voice that stopped the knife for Isaac will not say a single word. The knife stopped on Moriah. The voice intervened. But 2 generations later, the rules change entirely. A teenager is stripped of a bloody coat. He is thrown into a dry, echoing desert cistern. He begs for his life. His brothers ignore him. They sit down to eat bread while he screams. He is hauled out by his hair. He is sold for silver. He breathes the dust of a Midianite caravan all the way to a foreign slave market. And God says absolutely nothing. The story of Joseph takes up 14 chapters. It is a quarter of the entire book of Genesis. It is filled with dreams, betrayals, false accusations, and astonishing political ascents. But if you scan those 14 chapters looking for the phrase Vayomer, looking for the direct, spoken word of God to this suffering boy, you will find a total void. God never speaks to Joseph, not once, of impossible transitions, and of deep, isolating fear. And yet, it is not guaranteed. There are characters in this book who beg for a word. No angel calls his name from the sky. No voice answers him in the suffocating heat of the pit. No whisper comforts him in the cold iron of the Egyptian dungeon. He interprets the dreams of bakers and cupbearers. He predicts famines. He saves nations. But he does it all without ever hearing a single, audible syllable from the Creator. The narrator repeatedly tells us, the Lord was with Joseph. But being with him is not the same as speaking to him. This is a massive literary and theological shift. For Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the voice of God was a direct navigational tool. It told them where to camp. It told them when to move. But with Joseph, the audible voice is replaced by invisible providence. God is no longer speaking from the clouds. He is orchestrating from the shadows. Most people assume that when heaven goes quiet, heaven has left. But the Joseph narrative forces a completely different conclusion. The silence is not abandonment. It is a terrifying trust. God is trusting a human partner to steward the promises made to his great-grandfather without needing constant verbal reassurance. Joseph has to walk through a decade of betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment, armed with nothing but childhood dreams and silent integrity. He has to trust that the God who spoke to his fathers in the light is still operating in his dark. The silence of God is not the absence of God. It is the transition from direct command and hear nothing. There are entire lifetimes lived in the quiet. The pattern of who gets the voice and who gets the silence. To invisible orchestration, the book of Genesis could have ended right there, resting on the profound theology of silent providence. It could have closed the curtain on the booming voice of chapters past, but it doesn't, because there is one final word, waiting at the edge of the desert, and it is not for the powerful man on the throne. The silence holds for decades in Egypt. Joseph rules, the famine breaks, and back in Canaan, a fragile, grieving father receives impossible news. The son he thought was torn to pieces by wild animals is alive, draped in Egyptian linen, and commanding an empire. Wagons wait in the dust to carry the old man away from the starvation. Jacob packs his entire life. He drives his flocks south, but as he reaches Beersheba, the very southern border of the Promised Land, the exact place his father Isaac built an altar, the patriarch hesitates. The night air is thick with smoke from the sacrifices. The desert wind pulls at the heavy edges of the tents. Jacob is terrified. God had promised this specific dirt to his grandfather, to his father, and to him to leave Canaan, to cross the border, and go down into the pagan epicenter of Egypt. Feels like abandoning the covenant entirely. He is an old man staring into the dark. Is one of the most stunning revelations in ancient literature. It changes how you read every interaction that follows. To feel the weight, caught between the sun he desperately wants to see and the land he is terrified to leave. He falls asleep by the warm ashes of the altar. And the silence breaks one final time. For the last time in the book of Genesis, the Creator speaks. Vayomer. The voice does not come in the blinding light of a burning bush. It does not echo like thunder from a mountaintop. It comes in a vision of the night, dropping gently into the fragile consciousness of a frightened father. Jacob. Here I am, the old man whispers in the dark. I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again. The voice at Beersheba is not a new cosmic law. It is a divine permission to descend. God does not tell Jacob to stay in the safety of the promised land. He tells him to walk directly into the crucible, where his descendants will eventually be enslaved for 400 years. But with one staggering guarantee: I myself will go down with you. The God of Genesis is not geographically bound to the good times. He does not stay behind on the safe side of the border of this pattern. You have to start at the very beginning. You have to start in the absolute. Terrifying, dark. When his people must go down into the dark, into the foreign empire, into the place of weeping and waiting. The voice promises to pack its bags and walk into the shadow with them. This is the final spoken promise of the book. Genesis opens with a voice that violently tears the cosmos into existence. It ends with a voice whispering into the ear of a dying man, promising to hold his hand in the dark. And when you step back and look at every time that voice broke the silence over 50 chapters, a breathtaking picture emerges. The voice spoke into the absolute void, and the chaotic waters became a breathing universe. The voice walked into a ruined garden and offered a fracturing humanity a chance to speak back. The voice found a dying slave in the blinding heat and gave the invisible a name that would never be erased. The voice disrupted a pagan metropolis and called an idol worshiper to build a new nation. The voice intercepted a bronze knife on a bitter mountain and provided the substitute the fire demanded. The voice went completely silent in an Egyptian prison and orchestrated the salvation of a continent in the dark. The voice dropped into the dreams of an old, terrified father and promised to walk with him into the exile. One voice, one story. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the wilderness whisper. The Egyptian slave sitting a bowshot away from her son, waiting for the end, before the fig leaves, before the wilderness, before the mountain. The place to start is the void itself. In an ancient world where deities only spoke to kings, priests, and the powerful, the creator of the cosmos bypassed the wealthy tents of the chosen family to speak directly to a discarded woman. Her pain registered in the highest courts of heaven. Her trauma did not hide her from his pursuit. If you are in a season where heaven feels completely silent, where you, who are sitting by the ashes of a cold altar, were trapped in a season of waiting, and the audible voice has faded, remember the Egyptian prison. Remember Joseph. The silence is not abandonment. It is a terrifying trust. The God who speaks in the light is the exact same God who is orchestrating in your dark, and may the God who sees you in the wasteland speak exactly what you need to hear and bring you out carrying something you could not have received any other way. If this reached something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment, even. One word helps. Share this with someone who feels like heaven has gone quiet right now. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. Picture the surface of the ancient, deep, complete, suffocating blackness, where water stretches out with no shore to break against. An Egyptian slave collapses in the blinding heat of a wilderness, her lips cracked, clutching an empty water skin, sitting a bow shot away. No wind, no light, just the heavy, silent hovering of a spirit over a chaotic ocean. And then, the silence shatters. A sound wave rips through the darkness. In Genesis chapter 1, the first recorded action of the Creator is not physical labor. It is a vocalization, The text repeats a specific Hebrew verb 10 times in the span of 31 verses. And God said, "Let there be light." And God said, "Let the waters be gathered." The word translated as said here is the Hebrew amar. On the surface, amar is the most ordinary, utilitarian verb in the language. It simply means to say, to utter, to declare. But you have to step into the sandals of the ancient Israelites to understand what they were hearing when this text was first read out loud. In the ancient Near East, the reigning creation stories were brutal. The Enuma Elish, the famous Babylonian epic, taught that the world was built through cosmic slaughter. The god Marduk formed the earth by ripping the carcass of a defeated sea goddess in half, mixing her blood with the dust to make humanity. The ancient mind assumed that building a universe required immense violence, struggle, and exhaustion. Genesis shatters that assumption. Creation is not the fallout of a divine war. It is the physical manifestation of a spoken thought. When God uses Amar, he does not fight the chaotic waters. He simply gives them an order. Reality bends to accommodate his voice. The frequency of, so she does not have to watch her son die. A patriarch stands on a mountain in the bitter morning wind. His speech is enough to pull tectonic plates up through crashing surf, to ignite 1 billion nuclear furnaces in the vacuum of space, to organize the clashing, frantic swarming of life in the oceans. 10 times. He speaks to the elements, and matter obeys instantly, without friction, without a moment of hesitation. It is the perfect, unbroken rhythm of absolute authority. But that rhythm is about to break. Because after organizing the stars and the seas, the voice lowers its volume. It moves out of the vast, echoing chambers of the cosmos and walks into the localized humidity of a garden. And for the first time, God speaks to something that has the capacity to talk back. The wind drops. The temperature cools. The shadows stretch long across the grass. A man and a woman press their backs against bark. Their breathing is shallow. The rough leaves scratch against their bare skin. The universe obeyed without friction. The humans do not. They eat. They realize they are naked. They stitch together a flimsy covering. They hide in the damp brush. They wait for the thunder. They wait for the same cosmic voice that ignited the stars to tear the garden apart. But no thunder comes. Instead, there is the crunch of dirt, the sound of someone walking in the evening breeze. And then, a question drops into the quiet. Where are you? A heavy bronze knife trembling in his raised hand. And in all 3 moments, the air breaks. A voice cuts through the terror. The omniscient creator of the cosmos is walking through the trees, calling out to a trembling creature. God does not need a map. He knows exactly which fig tree Adam cowers behind. He can see the elevated heart rate. He can see the shame. The question is not a search for geographical coordinates. It is a search for a fractured heart. God does not issue a command. He offers a conversation. He gives the man a chance to step out of the shadows and tell the truth. The pattern repeats just 1 generation later. The setting changes to an open field. Dirt packs tight under fingernails. A heavy stone drops to the earth. Warm blood pools in the dry dust. Cain stands over the broken body of Abel. The frantic adrenaline spikes. The air goes completely still, and the voice arrives again. Where is Abel, your brother? Again. God already knows. The text says the blood is literally crying out to him from the soil. But he asks anyway. He asks Adam. He asks Eve. He asks Cain. He speaks to the water, and it gathers. He speaks to the light, and it shines. But when he speaks to fallen humanity, he asks questions. 3 interrogations in 2 chapters. 3 chances to step into the light. 3 moments where the voice of God meets human failure face to face. These are not courtrooms. They are confessionals. The Lord speaks. Genesis is a book obsessed with speaking. From the very first chapter, the universe is not built with hands. But the way God speaks in these moments of human failure is subtly different from how he spoke to the cosmos. To see the depth of what is actually happening in these conversations, You have to look at the original Hebrew, sitting just beneath the English translation. Because right here, at the intersection of human ruin and divine pursuit, the text stops using the cosmic word for creation. It swaps it for something else entirely. When you read the early chapters of Genesis in English, the translation can feel flat on the page. God said, "Let there be light." And then later, God said to Adam. It looks like the exact same mechanism. It sounds like the exact same tone. But in biblical Hebrew, there are two primary words for speaking, and the distinction between them holds a massive theological weight. The first is dabar. As a noun, it means a word, a matter, or a decree. As a verb, dibber means to speak formally, to declare, to deliver a monologue. When a human king stands on a stone balcony and issues a royal edict that cannot be questioned, he uses dabar. It is a one-way street. The speaker stands above. The listener stands below, silent in the dust, and obeys. But that is not the word the writer uses when God steps into the garden to confront human failure. The word the text uses is vayomer. It is spoken into existence. But as the pages turn, the target of the voice shifts. Most people assume the phrase, "and the Lord said," built from the root amar. While amar was used in creation to bring elements into existence, when it is directed at a human being as vayomer, and he said it carries a profoundly relational shift. Vayomer is the language of narrative sequence. It is the language of back and forth. It implies a continuing dialogue. It does not just drop a heavy stone of information into the room. It leaves space for an answer. It is the exact same word used in Exodus chapter 3. When a bush burns in the sand, and God allows a stuttering shepherd named Moses to argue with him, push back, and ask questions. If something about reading the text this way is shifting how you view God's voice, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the ancient text than you knew was possible. So God initiates Vayomer with Adam, and then, with Cain, that root changes everything. It means when humanity committed cosmic treason, God did not approach the crime scene with a formal dabar of execution. He did not issue a divine monologue from a distant throne. He used Vayomer. God's voice in the garden is not a siren of doom. It is a tether thrown into the dark. He does not want a silent audience. He wants a conversation. He wants the humans to speak back. Is just transitional text. A stage direction. A quick way for the ancient writer to move the plot from point A to point B. To confess. To return to the relationship. But the most shocking use of God's voice in Genesis does not happen with Adam, or Cain, or even Noah. It does not happen with a patriarch or a king. The first time God specifically seeks out an individual in distress to offer a direct, comforting revelation. He bypasses the powerful entirely. The sand burns through thin leather sandals. The heat rising from the rocks distorts the horizon. A young woman collapses next to a desert spring, on the road to shore. The dust caked in the sweat on her face. She is pregnant. She is terrified. And she is entirely alone. Her name is Hagar. She is not a matriarch of the promise. She is an Egyptian slave, caught in the crossfire of Sarai's impatience and Abram's passivity, used to produce an heir, abused when the pregnancy showed, discarded into a wasteland where women alone do not survive. She sits by the cool water, staring into the barren scrub, waiting for the inevitable end. But the silence breaks. The angel of the Lord finds her, and the Creator speaks. Vayomer. He does not speak to Abram, who caused the mess. He does not speak to Sarai, who engineered the cruelty. He bypasses the powerful, wealthy tent of the chosen family, or a simple theological stamp of approval on a patriarch's journey. But if you look closer at the exact moments the voice arrives, walks out into the desolate, lethal heat, and speaks to the runaway slave, Hagar, servant of Sarai. Where have you come from and where are you going? It is the exact same pattern from the garden. Another question, another invitation to tell the truth. In the ancient world, a slave is property. A slave is invisible. Their pain is legally irrelevant. But the voice that ignited the stars addresses her directly, by her given name. Recognizing her origin, the intervention is not a heavy hand of judgment. It is the arrival of profound dignity. The Creator bends down into her trauma. He does not just tell her what to do, he gives her a promise about her unborn son, a prophecy about his future, a guarantee that her pain has registered in the highest courts of heaven. And in response, this Egyptian girl does something no human being has ever done in the biblical narrative up to this point. She does not just bow. She does not just build an altar. She gives the Creator of the universe a name. El Roi, the God who sees me. Truly here, I have seen him who looks after me. Your lineage does not disqualify you from the voice. Your trauma does not hide you from the pursuit. Your wandering does not cancel your worth. The wilderness whisper changes the trajectory of Hagar's life, sending her back with a promise that she will not be erased, at the specific people who receive it. And at the devastating stretches of time where the voice goes completely silent, you start to see, but this intimate, surgical voice did not originate in the desert. To find the moment God first spoke to the man whose tent she just fled, you have to rewind the clock, leave the sand, and walk into a booming, pagan metropolis. Look at the skyline of ancient Ur. Massive ziggurats scrape the sky. Brick streets hum with international trade. The air smells of river mud, crushed grain, and the heavy smoke of 1,000 altars. This is the epicenter of the Sumerian Empire. It is wealthy. It is civilized. It is completely pagan. In the Mesopotamian pantheon, the gods do not talk to ordinary men. They are distant. They are unpredictable. They are annoyed by human noise. If you want to know their will, you do not listen for a voice. You look for a sign. A priest studies the alignment of the stars. A diviner slices open a goat and reads its liver. A king pours oil onto water and watches the swirling patterns. You do not hear their voice. You only try to appease their anger. Then Genesis chapter 12 happens. The Creator bypasses the ziggurats. He bypasses the professional priests. He speaks directly to a completely obscure, idol-worshipping man named Abram. Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. The call to Abram is not a cosmic omen.